Have you ever met someone that causes you to daydream about burning everything they've ever loved to salt and ashes? A coworker, a rude waiter, an entitled pre-corpse cutting in line at the DMV, a rabid tiny human whose mom looks at the party you're hosting like a free daycare service, spends all her time chugging down Zinfandel while her terrorizes your cat. That kind of person. Now imagine that feeling of rage you have to control because the judgmental eyes you get for suplexing them sends you into a downward anxious spiral. And also, assault charges. But now you have to explain to this roadblock of human evolution why the laws of your city, county, state, and federal government do apply to them. All the while, they repeat what can only be described as a boring, nonsensical word salad fan fiction of American history and law. No, thank you. I regret my decision. Oh, I'm still alive, just terribly injured. They go by several names, which is ironic for reasons we'll get into later. Freemen, private person, living being, state national. Despite their personal label, they all fall under the umbrella, or if you prefer, dunce cap, of the sovereign citizen movement. It's kind of a catch-all term for a loose group of ideologies that believe the government doesn't have power over them, that the government is illegitimate, or that laws just don't apply to them. It's not so much of a group for obvious reasons. And while not all believe the exact same thing, it all kind of comes back to the fact they think that the courts, laws, government doesn't have the right to hold them accountable. They don't have jurisdiction. There have been a number of famous people that have actually fallen into this rabbit hole as well. Actor Wesley Snipes was sentenced for failing to pay taxes, claiming he was a non-resident alien. But he tried to defend humanity from the vampires. The subway guy, Jared, filed motions to have his conviction overturned based on lack of personal jurisdiction, which was dismissed, the judge writing it had no basis in American law. Probably the most recent well-known example is Darrell Brooks, who in a rage drove through a Wisconsin holiday parade, killing and injuring dozens. He was tried, and after arguing jurisdiction,
we address subject matter jurisdiction, it still has to be proven for the
objected to
record.
being called by his name,
I object to being called that name for the record.
And making a box fort out of evidence, he was sentenced to 6 consecutive life sentences, plus 762 years. That's one way to prove that they have jurisdiction. Okay, reeling back. Quick civics lesson before we get too deep into this. In the US, the federal government came into being after telling the Brits to pick one and suck it, having a war and uniting the colonies into states. They wrote the Constitution, acting as the origin of laws in the country, to establish the military, the legislature, elections, and the courts. It also put into writing the legal authority for courts to hear cases brought for civil or criminal stuff. It also granted the authority for each state to set up a legal system that acted under the jurisdiction of the federal court. You better remember every one of those facts. There is going to be a test at the end of the video. To put it simply, imagine you're in a field. There's a group that controls it, maintains it, and keeps out vampires. They say you can live in the field, build a house, play Yu-Gi-Oh, whatever. All they ask is you follow some basic rules they have set up. Now, you're not at all obligated to stay in the field, but as long as you do, you're under their authority, so that the community that lives in the field is better protected. This is jurisdiction. I mean, it's way more complicated than that, but basically, you're under their roof, you follow their rules. But like a rebellious teenager yelling at their stepdad that they can't tell him what to do, Kevin! Sovereign-minded folk believe that since they didn't consent to be governed, they don't have to follow the rules. This can be anything from not paying taxes, getting a driver's license, to killing officials that exhibit authority over them. David Cairns, a former member of the Voice of Christian Youth America, a conservative evangelical media group out of Wisconsin, served 2 years in prison for what's referred to as paper terrorism, after his mentor at the VCYA, Gene Zimmerman, spent time with the Montana Freemen, attending a school at their armed compound to learn how to manufacture and file bogus property liens, bank drafts, arrest warrants, and other phony documents commonly deployed by sovereign citizen true believers. He directed Cairns to file a $100 million lien against an attorney for Planned Parenthood who was suing them for defamation. It probably wasn't a great call to file a bogus property lien on this particular attorney, considering the attorney, by the name of Catherine Doyle, was the sister of Wisconsin Attorney General and future governor Jim Doyle. This is a common tactic against critics of groups who subscribe to the sovereign movement. Mountains of bogus lawsuits, motions, and documents filed with the court, all holding about as much weight and authority as a LARPer yelling fireball and expecting you to Because in all reality, that's basically what it is. Live action, legal role playing. They'll cherry pick laws, factoids, Supreme Court decisions, and form baseless theories as fact and gospel. This kind of cherry picking is the basis for much of the movement's foundation. It comes back to a period in American history that some still fixate as part of their heritage. After the North told the South no more owning people, the South said, and tried to start their own country, though it is unclear on the blackjack and hooker situation. The bloody conflict, which lasted less time than the original run of Futurama, was resolved with the South conceding and the North re-establishing authority. This, to some, created the belief that because they didn't consent to be governed, they were not under the authority. Forgetting, I suppose, that they are still in the field being protected from vampires because of a combination of bad blood, ideology, and a non-zero chance of inbreeding. They believe that they are controlled by common law, not statutory law. Kind of a difference. This, among other beliefs, has evolved alongside the justice system. And in 1871, when the Congress voted to establish D.C., this, in their minds, made the federal government no longer a representative system, but a corporation. This lack of critical thinking and room temperature IQ led them to believe that the term municipal corporation could only mean now that the government was on the same level as the company that makes Mountain Dew. Oddly enough, this is the same point that QAnon made to argue that Trump would be re-inaugurated in March of 2021 as the nation's 19th president of the original American government. Comprehension better than or equal to a small child would show the severe flaw in their logic. And there are many examples of this. And as you might have guessed, works out about as well as covering your fleshy bits with honey and taking a nap on a fire ant hill. The YouTube channel Delete Laws is the brainchild of Joseph Chili DeCastro, a self-described First Amendment auditor, a type of cop watcher that's a whole separate thing. These are the guys that go around with cameras to see if a cop is going to tell them to stop doing stuff, arguing with them, and then eventually experiencing police violence. Anyway, DeCastro, who claims to be a constitutional law expert,
yes, I told him I'm a constitutional law scholar, which was a moniker given to me by other people who are also, they have their own channels, their own press, and that's what some other lawyers on another channel called
found
me.
himself slapped with obstruction charges for, well, obstruction. And after failing to convince a judge of his theories, got slapped with 6 months in jail. You know, it's strange. For an ideology that is so insistent that they are not part or subject to society, they sure like to participate. Finding an audience to those who think it can provide some sort of magic mulligan to get them out of trouble. The grandiose language and barely coherent gish-gallop theories has had a break-off effect that's tied within the community. Much like inbreeding creates lower IQs, genetic effects, and English royal face.
Oh, God, his face!
Sovereign theories have legal and financial consequences to living flesh and blood people. Part of the problem, they believe that their legal name is a straw man, a non-physical entity that just happens to share the same name as them. They'll often represent themselves in court as the trustee, the representative, the moron. And this also ties into things like paying taxes, which, if you've ever been late on taxes, listen, I'd rather get caught smuggling ketamine from Morocco to Iran than be late on my taxes. We'll just leave it at that. This theory that there's a straw man, that you're the representative of it, is tied to a belief that each one of these straw men has a secret account with the US Treasury. According to them, when you were born, the government created a hidden account in your name stuffed with untold riches attached to a bond number, your social security number. All you need are the right magic words, or rather, legal filings, to access it. Needless to say, as to quote my grandfather, that's f***ing stupid and your mother's a whore. These beliefs don't just affect the individuals that subscribe to them. Though with all the issues I have with policing, the justice system, the uneven application of law, watching videos of sovereign citizens being calmly and often respectfully treated despite their delusional attempts to evade justice and casting proverbial fireballs, lets me know that in some parts of our system, it's working pretty okay. Maybe they could just knock it off with the no-knock warrants, excessive bail, and shooting unarmed teenagers. Maybe... Oh, man, not on the sidewalk. It may sound like a neat idea not to be constrained by laws, but if you're not, neither is anyone else. There's a reason we have those kinds of things. I guess what I'm saying is stop being fucking stupid and follow the laws the best you can. Till next time, toodaloo.
So thank you so much for watching. If you liked what you saw, there's another video right here. You can remember to like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. And yeah, take a look in the description. I put some links of other guys who do great brain rot on these sovereign citizen guys. So yeah, bye.